Next speaker is Jim Lakely, who is a research fellow at the Heartland-Institute in Chicago. He's actually based not in Chicago, but in Pasadena, California. He is the managing editor of InfoTech Telecom News, the publication that many of you have on your table. His writings on internet technology and telecom have appeared in the New York Post, San Francisco Chronicle, Chicago Sun-Times, and many other newspapers across the country. James' topic today is entitled Tax Fairness for Telecom Services and Muni Wi-Fi. Please join me in welcoming Jim Lakely.
Thank you. I want to thank you for the cold weather. I haven't experienced that in quite a while. I'm from Pasadena. We have lots of rain and cold, but clear and cold is also nice. As Brian had mentioned, my kind of a two-for topic today. I've been with Heartland since August, and I've been editing. That's how long I've been editing InfoTech and Telecom News. So, to be frank, I'm a little new to the entire subject matter. But as is necessary in Heartland, you jump in the deep end and you better swim. Two of the big topics, of course, have been internet taxation, and an ongoing subject in this field is frankly the failure of municipal Wi-Fi programs in cities across the country. But we can start here with internet taxes. As many of you, I'm sure, know, Congress last year renewed the Internet Tax Freedom Act, extending until 2014. The moratorium on direct taxation on the Internet. And while this move is to be applauded, the so-called tax moratorium on the Internet is largely misunderstood, and it's not really a tax moratorium at all. When it was first passed, when the Internet Freedom Act was first passed in 1998, it was intended to keep access to the Internet tax-free, with the exception of 10 states whose various taxes on Internet access and other various aspects of the Internet they were grandfathered into it, and those states are Hawaii, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, Wisconsin, and, unless I'm mistaken, Ohio is the 10th one on that list. These states were permitted to continue some manner of taxation on ISP charges. And when this law was being debated in Congress, the Democrats seemed most keenly interested in keeping the entry point of access to the Internet low, or at least not adding to the price of through taxation to get onto the Internet. And this idea seems to dovetail with Congressional Democrats' general view of Internet access, particularly high-speed Internet access, as a utility, as a vital utility, akin to water or electricity services that you need really to survive and have your house operate. They tend to see it as a right, not as a service, and as a vital avenue for poorer Americans to get better education, better jobs, and build a better life. Republicans, meanwhile, during this debate, agreed with Democrats, of course, that the Internet Tax Freedom Act should pass, but it also saw it as a way to spur growth in Internet commerce and innovation by keeping additional tax burdens off the Internet. The new law prevented Congress from imposing a national sales tax on web-based purchases. What the Internet Tax Freedom Act did not do, and this is where the public seems most confused, was to prevent the imposition of sales taxes by other government entities. Indeed, many of the grandfathered states impose some sort of tax on Internet access. Of course, they don't call them taxes. There are fees or access charges either imposed on Internet service providers who pass them along to customers, or they're just direct taxes. Texas, for instance, collects a tax on Internet access for those with subscriptions above $25 a month. In other words, just about anybody who wants the kind of high-speed Internet access you need today to watch YouTube videos and all the other fun stuff that happens today. Before the Internet Tax Freedom Act passed in 1998, numerous states and municipalities across the country were looking to impose their own taxes on Internet access, which is, of course, why the law was banned. And it's precisely because of this burden that the Internet Tax Freedom Act was passed. But now we come back really to the flaw in this whole operation, is that while Congress banned itself from imposing a sales tax on Internet purchases, it did not ban the states from doing so. And as a result, several states have imposed sales taxes on Internet purchases. For the most part, the consumer is responsible for self-reporting their Internet purchases, and if anyone here lives in a state that you're supposed to report your sales taxes on your tax forms for going to Amazon.com and buying a book, or going to iTunes and buying a movie, or a song, you can raise your hand if you've actually reported that purchase to the state government. Okay. Me either. And I live far away, so you'll have to chase me very far. But anyway, so because the self-reporting doesn't really happen, the states are trying to find a way to get their hands on this money. And right now, according to the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, the states right now, because of the downturn in the economy, face a combined $89 billion in budget deficits. And they need to make that up somewhere. And in fact, Forrester Research recently released a report saying that online sales made up about 8% of all retail sales in 2008, totaling $204 billion. That's up from $175 billion in 2007. Based on that estimate, Forrester said that state governments could generate $3 billion in new revenue if they made everybody who bought something online, made them pay the tax, and usually because self-reporting doesn't work, they want to make the retailers do it. And that brings us to New York State. They've joined New Jersey now as being the first state to impose, by statute, the so-called Amazon tax, and there's a variation of that's new, is the iTunes tax, the levy on downloading of digital media, books, music, movies, games, etc. The Heartland's position is that this is very bad news for consumers, especially and also for web-based retailers, and ultimately for the municipalities who get more benefits from a lightly taxed internet than they would from joining the Empire State and the Garden State in trying to tax internet commerce. So let's talk about some of the reasons why government should really not go down this road. And one of them is that this will open a gateway to taxing internet access, which is something Congress really wants to prevent. I really don't see the Internet Tax Freedom Act surviving in its present state past the extension to 2014 if online sales taxes start proliferating as quickly as states seem to want to do them. Federal law currently bans taxes on things like how much broadband one consumes, how many emails you send, and even as we discussed earlier, even access to the internet itself. But it seems like once you start taxing something and start thinking of creative ways to create revenue online, I don't have much confidence that governments will find a stopping point, that they will try to put their hands in all of them. So I think it would pretty much wipe out the Internet Tax Freedom Act as we know it today. And again, a tax like this would really never go away. When Governor David Paterson in New York announced his desire for an iTunes tax, basically making Apple and Amazon and other companies collect sales tax for them and send it into Albany, he assured voters it was, we just really need this now because, we have enormous budget deficit, the Wall Street is crashed, that cash cow is dried up. We need to stop the financial bleeding. So the implications seem to be, well, once this crisis is over, we'll take another look at this and maybe the tax will be lifted. Fat chance on that, I'm sure. That's the funny thing about taxes, or the not so funny thing. If you're on the paying end of a tax scheme, they never seem to disappear because governments never fail to find ways to spend that new revenue. When the economy was booming in the 1990s, for instance, as we all remember that, tax revenue was just rushing into every state's coffers. But does anyone remember any of these previously necessary or temporary taxes being eliminated from the 1990s? Of course not.